Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ask Engineer. It's me, Lady Ada the engineer. With me, Mr. Lady Ada on camera control. We're here inside the Flying Toasters. We're here broadcasting live from downtown Manhattan in the secret Adafruit headquarters, where we design many of the beautiful electronics that you know and love. But for the next hour, we're going to be going through all the news, videos, products,
Yes.
demos, and more. We got a lot of top secret tonight because we've been
Yeah.
holding them in.
Yeah, we
Making them.
had, yeah, that's how it goes now. We're working on a lot of hardware, so it bunches up.
All right, so let's kick it. What's on tonight's show, Mr.
On tonight's show, the code is RP Think Inc. Tempers off and native first all the way up to 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, or when I remember to turn the code off. Use it or lose it. Anything in stock, 10% off in the Adafruit store. We'll talk about our live shows, including Show and Tell, which we just did. Thank you, Liz and Aaron, for hosting that. A little bit of recap of Desk of LadyAda, including the Great Search. We'll play JP's product pick of the week. Time travel, got a little cool thing from an Adafruit team member that I'm going to post up on our blog and on video. Some advanced manufacturing, made in New York City factory footage, 3D printing, Eye on MPI, brought to you by Adafruit and DigiKey. Top secret, that's the big chunky one. We're going to do some new products. Going to answer your questions. We're going to do all that and more. Don't forget, we answer the questions on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord or discord.gg/Adafruit. That is what we call Ask an Engineer. That's
Wow.
our show this week.
Kick it.
And we'll talk about what these toasters are and more, but this is a live feed coming off a microcontroller right now, this second right now.
Yeah.
And to prove it, can I just press the button?
Press that button.
No,
It'll go away. Press it. Oh,
no signal. There it is. Oh, look at all
if you
the.
hold it down,
What'll happen if I hold it down?
it'll say no signal for a while because it won't.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this.
That's turn like you reset, bam.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in a bit, but I think it's a big deal because you can do stuff like this with a microcontroller.
So cool.
And we'll talk about the show and tell in just a minute, but this is neat. 2023, we're able to do a lot of cool stuff that seemed impossible just a few months ago.
We are back on our bullshit.
That's right. Okay, so the code is RPT Hink Kink. RP Thinking.
Urpus Inc.
Yeah. Rumpelstiltskin. RP Thinking. You get free stuff. Maybe. What do we get? Oh yeah, well, it's not that microbit. We're done with the microbit.
Yeah, but it's like a cool video.
It's on a truck. Yeah,
we got a back in stock. They're back. The freebies that people love. $99 or more, you get a free Perma Proto half-size breadboard PCB to make your project permanent.
Yeah.
And then $149 or more, you get a pink KB 2040. It's our RP 2040 dev board with STEMMA QT, castellated pads, USB Type-C. It's Pro Micro Pinout compatible, so it's a great update to many projects. UPS ground, free shipping when you order $199 or more. And not a microbit, Circuit Playground Express. We got more in stock. The chip shortage is slowly ending. Our favorite microcontroller board is free when you order $299 or more. It's got a SAMD21, 2 buttons, piezo, lots of capacitive touchpads, NeoPixels, and more.
Yeah, for the chip shortage, it's the beginning of the end, not the end of the beginning. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
We do live shows, and this week Liz and Aaron hosted it. Thank you so much. On the show and tell, I'm not supposed to have favorites. However, I'm just going to go over some of the things that wasn't show and tell. So please watch it. It's on our wherever you watch our videos. So we had the Feather RP 2040 DVI show off demo from Phil B, who worked on a lot of this.
Cool.
Scott showed some of the DVI work that he's working on with CircuitPython. That means you can do things like go online with it, display text. Really neat. Mark showed some GIF work, so you can just kind of pump out the animated GIFs to a display. A portal gun. Kevin was live from an event showing this like really cool DigiKey tank.
Oh.
Todd showed the thing that we wanted to build. Like, it's amazing. It's a video synth, like triangles and everything. And Todd just mentioned this in the chat, but I think it's worth mentioning too, is one of the neat things about doing video stuff on a microcontroller like this, it's instant. You just don't wait. Like, you turn it on, it's on.
Yeah.
Like, I think we've all waited forever just watching
We,
things.
we bought a bunch of video sets and they're all really cool,
They're
but they
fun.
use Raspberry Pis. And so like you're waiting like a
Yeah.
minute for it to boot and you're like, is it working?
And most of the time, you're tweaking stuff and it doesn't. And so you're like, and you just have to wait like, a couple minutes each time. I really like the idea of
Yeah.
like fast iterations with video. And then keeping with the tank theme, DJ Devin showed off a really neat tank bot is building to explore the underground sewer system in his Florida home because the houses are built on concrete, and if you get a plumber, they want to charge you a lot. So why not build your own sewer bot? So I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay.
So we do show until every single week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We also do a show called Desk of LadyAda, and we do it in two parts this week. Part one, what did you show?
Okay, for this lady, I showed off the Think Ink Feather, which is of course this week's new product. I also showed off a bunch of sorry, I showed off U2IF, which is a way to wait, was this week's or last week's? Maybe this was this week's. U2IF, which lets you program and control feather boards through USB. And so I was actually showing the Thinking Feather running off of CPython. I also showed off a new design, which is a prop maker featherweight. This is Dan's idea. So it has an accelerometer and servo and I2S output and NeoPixel driver. So good for props.
Then we do a segment called The Great Search, where you help people find the things they need on digikey.com. And then this week you did what? USB?
Oh, I remember. Okay, so I was doing USB-C and power delivery USB-C, and for the board, and we have it in the it's not out yet, top secret section. I needed a regulator that would give me 3.3 volts, even if I had 20-volt power coming out of the microcontroller. So, sorry, out of the USB-C port, because USB-C power delivery can go from 5 volts up to 20, but the chip still needs 3 volts regulated output. So. Searching for LDOs is like a classic, 5% of the time that's what you're doing on DigiKey. And I go through a lot of the settings and we found a lot of good options.
All right. Then on Tuesdays, we have JP's product pick of the week. Here's this week's highlight.
This is it. This is the product pick of the week this week. It is the Itsy Bitsy NRF52840. Bolted to the side here. I'm just running a ground and one input pin to the switch contacts there. When I am listening to music on my phone and then I suddenly need to pay attention to something, this is programmed to act as consumer control over Bluetooth LE to the phone. Right, so you're rocking out to your tunes and then someone needs your attention, something needs your attention. Boom, hit the big button. That just sent Bluetooth radio wavefules across the ether into the phone. Watch the play button there. It's playing. It's pausing. It's the Itsy Bitsy NRF52840.
And on Thursday, JP's workshop, and Friday, deep dive with Tim. All right, time travel. I got one little news item. I'm going to try to do this more and more and more. So a lot of folks at Adafruit are artists, they're musicians, they're writers. And so I'm always saying like, hey, if you have a book or something, I'll put it up on the blog. A lot of times people ask like, oh, what are the people at Adafruit? What music they listen to? I'm sure they're like cool weirdos.
Oh, cool weirdos.
Yeah, and so this one is from Olivia, and she has a couple books coming out, and one is called Black Mask, a novel.
Backmask.
Black Mask? Sorry, a novel, and the other one, and let me go to the
Lockdown Laureate.
yeah, I like Lockdown Laureate. So it's a bunch of stories about doing stuff over the lockdown. So let me go to that. So I put all this on the site. On our blog, so you can see Backmask and Lockdown Laureate. And if you want to read about these, one is more of they're science fiction-y, but if you want to support an independent author, I'm going to buy a copy and just read one of the things that one of our folks make. One of our team members did an album, you're probably familiar with some of the music, so this is a book, and it's on our website, so
cool.
Check it out. Yeah. All right. Next up, LadyAda, let's do some Python on hardware. All right, this week in Python on Hardware Land, um, kind of a big deal, I guess, depending on what you think a big deal is in the world of electronics. So Sony, they were making the Raspberry Pis in the UK,
They
and
still do.
they still do.
And they make some in Japan.
Yeah. And so this announcement is Sony backs Raspberry Pi with funding and access to AI chips. So basically, the way I'm reading this is Sony's investing in Raspberry Pi at the valuation of 500 million. That's what Raspberry Pi, not the foundation. This is the commercial
trading
company,
company.
the trading company. And what it looks like they're doing is saying, hey, like we're gonna, make Raspberry Pis, but we want to make sure there's AI chips on the edge. So a lot of the uses for Raspberry Pi is for commercial uses.
Yeah.
So
And people want to use Edge AI for voice recognition or face recognition without connecting to the internet or without needing internet control. So many people use Raspberry Pis for digital signage or like entry computers or whatever. A lot of products use them. So it will be interesting to see. Sony investing is really smart because, of course, if they're manufacturing, they want to see Raspberry Pi succeed, but they also have deep insight into the Raspberry Pi manufacturing and distribution. And like I said, they manufacture in Wales. I think they manufacture in Japan as well.
yeah, and one little bit that I thought that's interesting. It says in a typical year, roughly 70% of the sales now come from commercial customers embedding it in products in factories or consumer devices.
Yeah.
So Raspberry Pi, the commercial company, 70% going to industry.
Yeah.
And there is a shortage of Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
I think we're one of the few companies that's figured out a solution that you're not going to please everybody all the time, but you can please some of the people some of the time. And you can look on like RPI locator on Twitter.
Yeah.
People are getting Raspberry Pis from us.
Absolutely.
You can always, find people who are buying them, put them on eBay for like $200, but we're not interested in it.
But they are becoming more available, and of course, the compute modules are very popular with industry. I mean, they clearly designed it for industry customers.
Yeah, and so CNBC has overview article. They dig into a little bit more of the finances and like what this could mean, the specific chip, and what they're doing with education and more. So check it out. It's interesting as far as like what's going on in the electronics world in general. So Raspberry Pi, an amount of funding. So before they got funding on a valuation of 500 million, so you figure like 45 million or something. It's probably this round is probably the same too. So
Yeah.
so maybe let's be like really conservative. Like let's say it's like $60 million all together, all the funding.
Yeah.
So it gives them a good runway to beef up production, hire more people, do a lot more stuff. Arduino late last year, 30 something million in funding. And then they have a pro line, and that looks like the direction they're going. They're going to the enterprise.
Also, commercial.
What?
Commercial.
Yeah. Also, like that seems to be their focus as well. And then you have Particle. I think they haven't been in the news for funding recently. I don't know if they're going for it right now. And then there's like other maker-esque companies from the past that took on funding. There was Little Bits, that's now part of Sphero, and then there was MakerBot, and that eventually went to Stratasys. So I don't have time to do like a big maker business overview or like all these players.
Well, somebody else can do it.
Someone else should do it. It's one of those things where like I think when you're doing the business of hardware, it's really hard to write about it. Plus, I'll say this, like back in the day, or even now, anytime, so I have the article about Arduino like over 10 years ago on Make. Now, anytime if I write about Arduino, some crank will say, oh, you're writing about it because you want to take over their business, or there's just nutty people online. And so it's hard to write about things if you're in the same business. So I always put our disclosures and everything that we do, but it's an interesting time. There's more investment going into hardware. Good example was today with these RP2040 chips. We're doing video out. Like this is like really intense stuff that you can do. So yay. I'm happy to see Raspberry Pi get a new round of funding because the RP2040 has been something that's really helped us quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially during the chip shortage. And hopefully they dump more resources into stuff like this.
Yeah.
Really like it. More Python on hardware. So the other thing, PyCon is coming up next week. check out our extensive posts. Kattni will be there. Jeff Miller will be there. Please go say hi and meet with them. Also, if you're attending, let Kattni know ahead of time on the Discord channel, and they can get you set up for if you want to do the sprints and things like that. So that is this week's Python hardware news. Don't forget, you can get this newsletter every single week delivered to your mailbox from Adafruit Daily. Go to adafruitdaily.com. Sign up. Okay, let's do some open source hardware stuff, LadyAda. We're an open source hardware company because that's what we like to do. And we have a bunch of guides.
Yes.
Thousands.
Let's check out the guides. Okay. So Phil B updated the Pico Arduino DVI library. Oh, can you click on it so we can? Because
Yeah, click on it.
You can click on it now. So go to examples
I'm clicky.
and screensavers.
Yeah.
So the new thing is screensaver demos. So we've got lovely. Ooh.
Am I online?
Yeah, you're online, but it's the
There it is.
Okay. So we've got a logo bounce, and this is the DVI, and this is actually 640 by 480 because it's actually writing pixels at the time of
TV host.
Flying toasters, which you saw, sprite-based toaster animation, and aquarium, another classic After Dark one, which was a lot of people's favorites, and then TV host, which does drawing, like the person is a sprite, but the background is actually drawn live. So he actually does the math,
and that's why, and you can have it like do something different forever, but the person graphics is what is the you have as a sprite.
And
That's
thanks
really cool.
and thanks to JP for dressing up because I don't have a tie.
Yeah, Lamar was gonna do it, and we're like, oh, like to do it right, we have to do a tie and everything.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, someone can make in the chat. They're like, "Can I get a Starfield?"
Code it up.
You can do it.
Absolutely.
You can do it.
There's tutorials and everything. Okay, so let's go back to the guides. Okay, Blinka CircuitPython library. Oh, yeah. So CircuitPython libraries. Dan updated that and with some text. The ADT 7410 breakout has been revised. It's now STEMMA QT compatible. Don't remember what happened with the Raspberry Pi camera time lapse. And then Kattni wrapped up the Feather RP2040 with RFM69. The Feather RP2040 RFM 9X is coming next. And then Liz did a guide on using the CircuitPython Wii Classic controller. She wrote a library and is a tutorial on how to use it.
All right. And then just a little side note, because we looked at this today.
Mhm.
I thought this was, I didn't, I'm not doing the whole segment on the show, but Washington posted an article about where Google is scraping data to make their large language models and AI and all this stuff. And I thought it was interesting because the number one site was Washington Post. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But number 15 was Instructables. And that's interesting to us because Instructables, we have history with them too. We've done stuff. It's kind of where you started putting your how-tos and guides online when you started Adafruit.
I won a lot of contests.
You won a lot of contests. In fact,
and they told me I can't.
You can't. You're a pro.
Then they made me a judge.
Yeah.
I can't win contests.
If you can't beat them, judge them. So what's neat about that is it means there's a how-to site, because some of the times when we see the large language models and what it's like, make me some code that runs on a microcontroller. It's all our code. We're totally fine with that. Because it's like Adafruit, it has the variable names. It's Adafruit all over the place. You could probably just cut and paste the code. It's probably faster than going through a ChatGPT like thing. But it's interesting to see where it's getting this information from. So of course, like right away, like I'm like, let me try Adafruit. Let me try SparkFun. Let me try some other things. So there's a little prompt that you can put in the website. Hackaday was like 300. And that's interesting to me. I started that site a long time ago.
It's a lot of content on that
and it goes back like 15.
It
goes back over 15 years.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of technical content there. And that's why some of the times I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty good. How did it do that? How did it predict the next word? Because it's essentially what it does, peanut butter and jelly. So it knows the jelly, and that's just a very, very basic example. And I think Google CEO did the same example when he was like, this works. But check out what's in there, because obviously they're scraping learn, and obviously they're finding a lot of resources. We're okay with that. I have some opinions about the best way to do it and how they could source that and say where they're getting it from. But it's kind of interesting that's where we're at now. This will all be solved in lawsuits later. But for now, check out some of the, see if you can find, if you put something on Instructables, ask some of these large language models.
That was like really popular. It was doggy wheelchairs, how to make your own.
Yeah.
That was like very popular.
Yeah, and then there's some projects that are like a little on the line of legality. Like maybe it'll say, "Well, I can't show you how to do that." So I thought that was interesting. So that was the news for that.
Wait, sorry, Fred. So the time lapse case, that was for some I thought it was a time lapse. That's
this-
this week's 3D Hangouts.
Yeah,
I totally had a brain blip.
we're gonna play the
Yeah, we're gonna play the video.
Yeah. Okay, let's do some factory footage. And that's the factory footage. One thing, George just mentioned this, and I have to, because we just had a very similar conversation. George just says, the AI stuff reminds me of the music samplings of the 90s. So Two Live Crew got an incredible amount of trouble for all sorts of things, but a lot of it was music sampling at the time. And I was just talking to LadyAda about Two Live Crew. I don't know if you ever heard of them before, but they were like, they're just like breaking every rule possible, and they were in court all the time. But it does remind me of that when music sampling first hit the scene. It's like, is this okay? All of music is music sampling, so we'll figure out like what happens next. Anyway, see, I knew it was gonna come up somehow.
Good. Good work there.
All right, anyways.
You know, the Two Live Crew. Two Live Crew is mentioned in Act 1. Their music must be played by Act 3.
That's right. Let's do 3D printing, and we'll see you on the other side of those videos.
You can build a time-lapse rig with the new camera module from Raspberry Pi. We were able to capture this stunning time-lapse with dynamic exposure thanks to the new Pi camera's HDR mode. 3D print our SnapFit case to house a Raspberry Pi 4, Pi Ramone's 4-inch hyperpixel display, and the new camera module V3. The new module features autofocus, a 12 megapixel sensor, and an HDR mode offering excellent image quality. High dynamic range means you can capture perfect exposures in your time-lapse videos. Whether you're looking to capture blooming plants or fluffy clouds, you don't have to worry about blown out or underexposed images. Get the parts and accessories to build this project, links are in the description. Download the free files and 3D print the parts to build the case in your favorite filaments. Start by installing the camera's ribbon cable through the slit in the front cover. Short standoffs secure the camera to the front while the Pi is secured to the back with machine screws. The hyperpixel display fits onto the Pi's header, and the enclosure goes over the whole assembly and snap fits onto the front cover. This mounting bracket holds a 1/4-20 tripod screw and gets secured to the side of the case with additional screws. A separate cover snap fits over the camera module's PCB to keep it protected. This tilt ball head makes a nice addition to a mini tripod and allows you to position the camera in different angles. We hope this inspires you to check out the new camera module from Raspberry Pi for making your own time-lapse rig.
All right, and before we go off to INPI, don't forget the code is RP Think Inc. 10% off an native free store all the way up till 11:59 p.m. LadyAda, let's do some INPI.
On MPI.
Okay, this week is Beaglebone.
Beagle board.
Yeah, but
Beagle
it's
bone is the product.
I know, but it's big. Yeah, that's how I know it. You call it Beagleboard,
I
right?
call Beagle bone sometimes too, but
Yeah.
beagleboard.org is the group
Yeah, and this
that
is the
they design single board computers, and they have a new one. It's like if people remember the Beagle board original and the Beagle bone, they have a new one called the Beagle Play. So
Beagle
let's check
Play.
it out. It's pretty cool. So this is the Beagle Play. It is chock full. This has like everything in it. It is a ultimate all possible connections available.
New York's hottest
dev
club
board.
is
Beagle board.
Beagleboard.
No, it's there. It's all there. This is the back of the board. So this is a base. It features a ton of um chips from TI. The main core is, I'm trying to remember, it's the Citara um, AM6254. It's a quad core A53 chipset. It's also got a Cortex M4 in it, and it's got like tons of add-ons. So you might be familiar from this board again. The previously most popular board was the BeagleBone, which had actually a couple of spin-offs. There was the BeagleBone Green and the BeagleBone AI, but the BeagleBone, it was a predecessor to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi came afterwards. And this board was really neat because it was a single board computer. It had Ethernet, it had DC power in and USB and a lot of GPIO. And it was very inexpensive. It was about $60, which is, at the time was pretty amazing considering that, PC 104 boards easily started adding up and could be a couple $100 a piece.
All
So
here because of the Chumby.
we really are all here because of the Chumby and the Beagle.
If you like the Raspberry Pi, single board computing, go Bunny. Thanks for bringing this into the world.
For makers.
For makers, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like we all saw it and we're like, oh wow, this is
Yeah,
it.
this is cool.
And I remember Beaglebone came out and I was like, this is awesome.
It's very cool. And we
Yeah.
carried it. And the thing is that, and there's also, the Beagle Board XM. This is actually the original one. And this was cool, but I vaguely remember like why this was not as popular. I think it was just really hard to, it had more hardware connected. You see, there's like two audio. But I think it was tougher to connect to the GPIO. I think the GPIO wasn't easily exposed, or was like on a 0.2 or a 2 millimeter pitch header or something. But this was like the original, and then that's available, and then the Beaglebone is still available as well. And this has we have support for it, and a lot of people have support for it. So the Beagle Play is
This is like when you're
new.
when you're on a website and you're ordering something like a pizza, and you're just like, you know what? I'm just gonna put everything on it.
Okay, you want broccoli, you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
ham, you want pineapple.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want Rockstar meatball. I want pineapple.
Okay. So there's a lot. Actually, let's go to the next image first, and then we'll go back because this one is actually a little easier to talk about. Okay, so the main core there is the AM6254. Like I mentioned, it's an A53 Cortex quad core, and I think it runs at 1.3 gigahertz. There's also a Cortex M4 subprocessor in there. It comes with, there's on-chip SRAM, but then there's an additional 2 GB of DDR4 memory and 16 GB of eMMC. So that's where the file system and operating system live. There's a real-time clock, the BQ32002. On the other side, you'll see the battery holder for it, which I think is really useful. It's like a lot of times people have an add-on to their Raspberry Pi where they add a real-time clock, but this is like all built in and ready to go, even with the coin cell battery backup, so you can pull power and it will know the time even if the internet doesn't connect. There's the TPS 652191 PMIC. That's just the power management because there's a lot of rails on this board. The wireless and connectivity is really interesting. So they I don't want to say they went overboard, but they kind of went a little bit overboard in a good way. So they've got gigabit Ethernet with the RTL 82100, 8211F, and they have a separate single pair Ethernet. That's the RJ11 on the other side, and that's with the DP83 chipset. Those aren't like the controllers. I think those were only like the PHYs. I think the Ethernet support is of course built into the SoC itself. For wireless, they've got WL82, sorry, WL 1807. That's a dual band, so 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Two separate antennas. The antennas come with the board, and they have a separate CC 1352 P7, and that provides BLE and sub gigahertz. Sub gigahertz in this case is Zigbee or Thread and other 2.4 gigahertz. 2.4 gigahertz, I think 900 megahertz. It doesn't have LoRa support, by the way, because I looked, it was like, okay, it doesn't do LoRa, but it does do like basic packet radio. So there's also 2 antenna ports for that as well. So let's go back one. So it's the main chips. So there's like 15
Here's all the fixins.
There's all the fixins. So starting at the top left, we'll go clockwise. So there's the real-time clock battery. So I showed you the real-time clock on the other side. You'll need a CR1220, just pop it in there to get battery backup. There's user LEDs. They blink when you power it on and all that good stuff. There's a JTAG connector, and this uses that like quick JTAG link or something. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it has little press fits and you plug it in. So you want a JTAG connect to the AM 6254. You can do that. The microbus, so this is for microelectronica, and they have like a 1,000 different breakout boards for like every single SPI, I2C or UART or ADC board, and you can just plug them right in. So there's a socket ready to go, and there's like the little outlines showing the 3 different sizes. There's OLDI, which I was trying to research a little bit, and I didn't get very far, but I believe it's like LVDS compatible. There's CSI2, so that connector there is the camera connector, and it's pin compatible with the Pi Zero camera connector. So if you want to use it with Raspberry Pi cameras, just get the Pi Zero to camera connector. Then there's Grove expansion, and that gives you, UART or I2C, or there is like an analog output Groves. I don't think that there's an ADC on here, and I couldn't find that there's an ADC on the chip itself. So I think it might not support the analog input Groves. It only does like UART, I2C, and GPIO. There's a quick expansion. So this will work with all of our STEM QT boards as well. So that's a ready to go I2C. And they have a tutorial on actually using this. Is like the one thing they had a really good tutorial on. There's a user button that you can use. There's a separate micro SD storage. That's not the main operating system storage, although you can boot from micro SD card if you want to configure it.
Why not?
You could, but you could use the onboard storage, the eMMC, which is going to be nice and fast, and then the micro SD for data logging or whatever, and that's you can mount and unmount it. There's a reset button. Again, there's that JTAG connector. Oh, sorry, there's a separate JTAG connector for the CC1352. That's the wireless connectivity. Power button, you hold that down to turn on the power connectivity LEDs for like all the different connections. And then the single pair Ethernet, which I found interesting because I've never really seen a single board computer that had single pair Ethernet. And on one hand, it's pretty cool. Could be that a lot of robotics and automation are moving towards single pair Ethernet. We covered it in a previous INPI. If so, then you can, maybe get power and data over one cable, and that could be really good for robotics and stuff because it's a nice small board with 4 mounting holes.
Yeah, this could be robotics board, home automation board.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Yeah. It's also got gigabit Ethernet and HDMI out 1080p. HDMI from the built-in. And the BeagleBone had a separate chip that did it. This is actually like natively on the AM 6254 core. USB-A 2.0 host. So, there's only one USB port. So if you're used to a Raspberry Pi or like that had 4 ports, it's because they had a hub built in. You can just attach an external hub if you need. There's a UART debug header. So, ground RX and TX, and USB-C. I'll be honest, I actually didn't use the USB connectivity, but it probably, if you plug into a computer, like shows up as a gadget device. It's also used for power. So I just plugged it into my, USB-C power plug, and it worked fine. Okay, so that was a lot. So let's get into some of the parts. So the main core is the AM625 series. It comes in 1, 2, 4 core. This is the 4 core version. Max frequency 1.4 gigahertz, 64 bit. Has Linux support. So you can check out, there's a bunch of hardware support here. It's got CAN, GPIO, SPI, I2C, rotary encoder, et cetera, et cetera. Tons of
gray boxes.
Tons of gray boxes. There is a tutorial on using I2C for the Stemma and Quick. I believe that it might only have I2C support via Grove, but a lot of things are I2C, so you'll be good for that. And then what we're gonna do is, like, I just got this. We're gonna get Blinko working on it so you can use all of our
Yeah.
CircuitPython library drivers.
Which is great timing because, for the folks who are like, well, I need a single board computer and, whatever. I'm just going to get something now instantly because I can't wait for Raspberry Pis.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, like, to be honest, it's like under $100. It is actually cheaper to get this than to get a Raspberry Pi, add the eMMC, add the real-time clock.
Yeah, you can't get all these things separately.
Single pair
And if you use Blinko, which we're going to have, if you've done Python thing, then it works everywhere. So that's kind of the reason we did it, because we're like, well, maybe one day people are going to be using all these single board computers, and we don't want to rewrite the drivers every single time.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot of stuff. And what's nice is, so the only thing is there's no GPIO, right? The GPIO, if there are any, are on the microbus. Not a ton. So that's the only trade-off. You can't like plug in existing hats or bonnets, but it kind of has everything built in already. For I think for a lot of situations where people are using Raspberry Pi, but they don't need GPIO, they just need to connect like accessory boards. This is a no solder solution.
Yeah.
And it's I like that. I actually kind of like that they went a different direction. They're like, we're not going to try to make a Raspberry Pi killer.
Yeah, well,
that's kind of a waste of time.
I feel like there's this like, what's the Raspberry Pi killer? It's banana pie, orange pie. Like, this is something different.
Yes.
And unique. So
I like that.
Like that they went in a different direction.
That's right.
Okay, that's this week's item MPI.
Right,
it's available now.
In stock.
662 in stock.
Yeah.
On MPI.
Okay, lady, before we go off to new product land, the code is RP Think Inc. It'll all make sense in a few moments. Let's kick it off with some new products.
All right. New.
All right. Well, last week we didn't have these in stock, I think. So a little reminder.
In stock.
Coasters with the Adafruit logo. Very rare because we don't put anything. We don't really put our logo on anything other than PCBs. So this is our way around that.
Yes, and they come with bumpers, which are not shown in this video, but they have little bumpers to protect. Super cheap.
We're on your coffee table.
Yeah,
okay,
pick them up. Next up, we've got a panel mount for the Raspberry Pi 3 cameras. These have a slightly bigger like camera body, and so I think we already carried the camera V2 version of these. I think these are from Pi Hut, but they're inexpensive, they're easy, and they basically give you like a big plate in order to mount your Raspberry Pi 3 camera. This is obviously not the big lens cameras. This is like the noir or plain autofocus cameras. Next up, we've got an update to the ADI wing. This was done in a partnership with DigiKey. We had to do a couple revisions for stuff, so we're like, let's go in and revise it. So the original version, you can see here, did not have a Stemma QT port, but now it does. So you can, all the parts are in this basically same location, but now you've got Stemma QT connection. So you can add more sensors, or you probably could connect directly to this, but you wouldn't get access to the interrupt pins and stuff. We've also got an update for the Metro ESP32S2 Express. First off, we put a Team USB logo on there because we wanted to celebrate the work that TAC has done with Team USB.
Yeah.
And second,
also, it's a cool logo, by the way.
Cool logo.
See, the I is a little USB drive. It's cool.
It's fine. And thanks to Bruce for designing it. The boot button moved. The boot button originally, can you go like here? Yeah, because I'll show the difference. So the boot button was in the middle, and now it's in the top right on the edge, so it's easy to get to. So you can actually load into the bootloader without pulling a shield off. It's got the Stemma QT still. It's got the ESP32S2, 4 megabytes of flash, 2 megabytes of RAM. It's got the JTAG connection, even though, to be honest, a lot of people use JTAG, but if you wanted to, it's SWD is there. USB-C with fuse, DC power with on-off switch, regulator, and LiPo battery and charger. Because we figured it's the ESP32S2 is Wi-Fi. You'll probably want to take it, make it portable, even though it's not super ultra low power. We also changed the battery monitor. It used to be a resistor divider. It now is a Max 17048. So it works a lot better. because the ADC on the ESP32 is not linear and it uses a lot less power.
All right, more revisions.
Another revision. This is the original. Sorry, go back. So this is the solar DC charger. That is our original. We have two of these, and this one is the first one we designed, and it features the MCP 73871. And the original version had a mini USB connector. We were going to do a revision on this. We had to change the DC jack anyways, and so hey, why not do the silkscreen over? And now it is a USB Type C connector instead of a mini B connector.
Product number 390. This is deep cut.
This is early. Yeah, this is very early, but it did work. I will say we have, what I consider
That's the OG.
a better solar charger, but this one is still, there is some benefits to this over the other one, and they're both very good. So for people who need the old version, I'm going to keep it around.
Okay. All right. And then these, we were just getting to putting these in the store last week, and we wanted to spend more time on it since it was a pretty long show. So we want to dedicate a segment to this. These are the new floppy disk costumes for SD cards.
Yes, and this is by Charlotte. So these are so cute. So this is, you take a standard SD card and you put these stickers on it, and then they look like little floppy disks.
Yeah, all day long. We're all like, hey, retro fun and everything, but we're not able to make our SD cards look like the way they should.
That's
So
right.
now
Now they do.
you can, and this is okay for the SD card.
Yeah, you can write it.
Yeah, you can write on them.
Yeah.
And you can put these out, and then you can tell the youngins this is how we used to save things.
Yes. So you
This
get a
is the save
pack.
icon.
You get a pack of 8 and 2 of each color: blue, pink, yellow, and
And support an
lavender.
independent maker for all these ideas and cool stuff that's coming out of the
Very
maker.
cute.
All right, the star of the show tonight, besides you, LadyAda, our team, our customers, our community, and everybody who makes these things go, is the Think Ink.
Yay, the Think Ink Feather, which was originally the Think Ink Trinky, but people didn't know that. How would they know that? Because I didn't tell anybody. But decided to turn this into one of our feather bones boards. So this is an RP2040 feather. And on the end there, it's got a standard 24-pin EPD connector, and I'll talk about that. It's got USB-C, it's got a battery, it's got RP2040, we said boot button, battery charging, 8 megabytes of flash, 264K of RAM, stemma QT port, lovely silk screen with Penguin, and then all the GPIO you can shake a stick at. And the way the bones board work is, it has all the standard pinout for GPIO on the feather, and then we usually have like about 5-6 pins left over. And so what I've turned that into is I've connected them. You see on the right there, there's a power supply and manager for a 24-pin EPD. So let's go to the overhead, and I'll show the EPDs. So e-ink displays almost all have the same connector on them. It's thankfully kind of a standard. They're these 24-pin connectors, and like this is a 2.13 inch, and this is a 2.9 inch, and this is a 5.65 inch 7 color version, which I think is neat. It takes a while. We can see it's got gray and orange and yellow. And they all have the same connector, and so you can easily pop out and replace a different e-paper display, and then you'll have to change the code for it. But all the boost circuitry that you need all these components to make it run, are pre-connected for you. And the RP2040 is a really great chip to run e-ink displays because they need a lot of RAM. They need a lot of RAM because you have to draw the entire display at once.
That's why we call it Think Ink.
Think
There's
Ink.
more than just an e-ink display
It's-
that goes into this. It's a
that's right.
bunch.
It's a thinking.
Yeah.
But you still get all of the feather pins besides, and so you can connect your e-ink display. We have also extension cables for this connector, and then you can plug feather wings on top if you like. So if you want to connect CAN bus, you can pop on a CAN bus feather. If you want to add on, sorry, I'm just looking at all the thick ink, all the other feathers that we've got. If you want to add joystick or TFT or Ethernet or Wi-Fi, also you can do that by just plugging in a feather. But for a lot of purposes, if you just need to have a board that runs any standard e-ink display, and you don't want to do any soldering, this is plug and play, ready to go.
All right. That is this week's new products.
Yay! New.
Okay, don't forget the code is RPThinkInc. Inc. We're going to do questions. You can pop them in the chat while we do a very long top secret segment. So
Yes.
buckle up. Don't tell anybody because this is top secret. But we'll see you on the other side. We're going to play some videos and then we're going to show some of the renderings from some of the new things that are coming out. So here we go. LadyAda, what is this?
This is an IntelliKeys assistive device, which has a matrix of touch switches behind it, and then these swappable overlays, and each overlay is like a little bit different. So you see this one has like mouse and keyboard, QWERTY keyboard, and this has like a bigger kind of alphanumeric keyboard, and it uses a photo cell to determine which overlay you have installed. And this is a really useful device, but unfortunately it's no longer supported, and the driver downloads firmware over USB from the computer, like a Windows computer. And so if you're not running like Windows, maybe it runs on Windows 10, but other devices like Chromebooks or tablets with mobile can't use this because they don't have that driver firmware to download into this device. But what we can do is use one of our USB host feathers, and what this does is HID translation. So this chip enumerates the IntelliKeys through the USB connection, downloads the firmware, and then asks it what overlay it's got, and Tact did an amazing job reverse engineering the original driver. And then to connect it to something like an iPad, you would connect using what's called like a camera kit. And here I've got like the Notes app up. And then you just give it a second because it needs to download that firmware. It'll beep when it's ready, and then you can type on this and it shows up just like keyboard input. So hello, I space am space. It's tough to type on a key.
All
right, good enough.
Good work.
Working.
LadyAda, what is this?
This is me testing out the Feather RP2040 with e-paper support. This is the Think Ink board. So this Feather RP2040, it's great because it's got 264K of RAM, which you need because you have to buffer e-ink displays. And it's got a standard 24-pin connector. Pretty much every display for e-ink that's not like a e-reader display, like these standard static ones, color, monochrome, tricolor, etc., they all have the same pin out on this 24-pin connector, which makes this Feather really great for making all sorts of e-ink projects. So let me line this up and run the test. And we're using a Pico to program the RP2040 through mass storage. This works really fast, and then when it passes, it lets you know by beeping and also changing the e-ink display. So coming soon to the Adafruit shop.
LadyAda, what is this?
Hey, this is an Adafruit RP2040 Feather with DVI, and it's driving this monitor to make some flying toasters. Phil B updated our guide on Pico DVI to add a couple fun screensavers, so that's one. And then let's load up. Got a couple others here. We've got aquarium. So I basically said, hey, here's my two favorite after dark screensavers. Hold on, it's loading up. And then give it a second. It's like thinking. And then aquarium. I love this cool because it was just like fish. And it was pretty chill and peaceful. There's also a very cool Max Headroom demo starring JP.
TV host.
But you can customize it with your own graphics as well. So check out the RP2040 DVI Feather. You can drive monitors really easily in Arduino in the Adafruit shop.
All right, LadyAda, what is this?
This is me testing out Scott's latest CircuitPython build with DVI output support. Look, this is on a monitor connected, an HDMI monitor connected to the DVI output, and it's running CircuitPython So I can run codes. For example, I've got this cool port of Turtle, which is, like the logo for CircuitPython.
That's cool.
And then there's also, let me run the Sierpinski triangle demo. That one worked really well too. So I'll copy and paste. So you can now do graphics really easily, especially if you like CircuitPython, using Display I/O, but to an HDMI monitor. It's pretty cool. I love triangles.
Okay, and we got some samples.
Yeah.
Things
These
in
designs.
and some coming soons. A little bit of everything right now.
So, okay, this is the T-Mag. So I was just like digging through, like I had a pile of chips from like a couple of years that I was just like, oh, finally can get it. So this is a 3D magnetometer from TI. And then this is kind of cool. This was actually Anne's idea. This is and actually a prototype built of it. So I can show it.
So we're getting really close. We have DVI, so that means we got video. We've got keyboard stuff. We've got mouse stuff. We've got
joysticks.
joysticks.
So this is a PC joystick
Control
to Stemma QT adapter. So this is a AT Tiny, and it's doing seesaw, so you can get the analog inputs and button inputs and convert them over I2C for reading. So this is kind of cool.
I'm going to say it was great when we first started getting Wi-Fi on microcontrollers.
Yeah.
Super cool, amazing. Now we finally get like video out.
Yeah.
Because like video was like, that was like for a microcontroller.
Normally you'd like have to use a computer.
No, it's Raspberry Pi. It's been around for a while. I was talking about like really low cost, super fast, instant video out on microcontrollers. And then being able to plug in something like a PC controller, like a game controller. Get there. Cool. For Raspberry Pi-esque, but
Very cool.
shrunk down and then super low cost. Okay, what else?
Okay, this is a redesign of our feathers. Is the one side, that's the other side of the Featherwing TFT plus joystick. So this board just got like the worst. Everything had to be redesigned.
That'll be funny after we say like the chip shortage is over. Like which board got?
This board got it the worst.
Is it the same?
No, sorry, the Clue got it the worst. The Clue, like almost every part is.
Is it still the Clue if we replace everything? Is it the phrase like if you replaced a plank on a boat? Is it the same boat?
Yeah.
Is it still the Clue now?
It's not in stock, so no.
So it's still not the Clue.
And then this is a quick board I put together. It's a 18-bit ADC, the MCP 3421. I thought that could be handy. Maybe you need an 18-bit ADC. It's slow, but maybe you don't care. Maybe you're like, I just need something. Oh, and then this is kind of neat. I actually have this one as a finished prototype as well. So just give me a second. I'm just digging through.
There's a bunch of stuff that I can see here that y'all can't see here. It's really
piles,
there's a lot of cool stuff here.
piles of stuff.
Because it's like we wanted to do more top secret, but we're gonna save
So
it.
this is the FUSB. So let's go to the overhead real fast.
Okay, here we go.
So this is a chip that is I2C and can do power delivery communication with USB Type-C. So the idea is that you can connect this to a microcontroller and you plug in USB Type-C here, and it will it'll default give you 5 volts, then you can request like up to 20 volts. And then you can get that higher V bus out here, and you still get the data plus data minus line. So it's kind of like a USB-C hacking board. It could be interesting because I definitely, there's projects where it's like, it would be so cool if you plugged in a microcontroller board into a power delivery and you could get like 12 volts and you could run your motor. You don't need 2 power supplies. You don't need USB and something else. It has all in one. So this is going to be kind of neat. So this is the FUSB 302.
Do you have any other things you want to show before we get out of top secret?
No, because we should do some questions.
We're gonna do some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, that is this week's top secret. Okay, we're gonna do some questions.
Yes.
It was a ship of thesis, but
Ship of thesis.
but you can call it the chip of thesis.
The chip of thesis.
Good one. Top buttons came in. Sweet. That's good. Okay, let's do some questions and then we'll see what else we got.
Yeah.
On IMPI, what's the microbus thing on the board was
That's Micro E's like plug and play. It's kind of like Featherwing. It's like they have like hundreds and hundreds of boards that all use the same pinout, and they don't have like Arduino drivers or Python drivers. It's written in their own like CSDK. But if you just want hardware that's broken out into these plug and playable boards, I think they're fully assembled too.
Okay, do the 24-pin e-paper pinouts very much, or are they sort of standard on signal types of power?
All of them that have the 24 pins have always had the same pinout and power. Some of them need more power because they're bigger displays, but for the most part, they're all pin compatible as well. I think there was one display that Scott found that had it was upside down. But in general, if it's a 24 pin connector, it's the same 24 pin connector.
How do you flash run our F52840 boards?
Well, we use the SWD pins, and there's pads on the bottom, and then our Pogo jig connects to it, and some of our boards have a SWD connector.
Okay. Any plans to make module for the USB PD that breaks out 5 volts and 3.3 volts? Those are what I use most for module. Would be great.
Yeah, I think there's something there, right? It's this one gives you 3.3 volts, but it's an LDO, just so you can like kind of get your microcontroller up and booted. Like you need something to get started, and then you can have a separate power supply. But I think for most people, what they would want is, you get that high voltage, and that's what drives your motor, and you don't necessarily need that much current at 3 volts. Although you can also request 5 volts, I think up to 5 amps. I think is possible from power delivery, but you need to have like a really good cable.
All right, and then last question. Ready?
Mhm.
How do you go about troubleshooting a complex circuit board that you have no schematics for? What would you do?
I would check the power supply because that's kind of like there's a couple things that are the most common. I'd look for capacitors that are blown, tantalum caps, short out, electrolytic caps, fail open, busted traces. I mean, you can't. Yeah, you can do continuity. You can check the power supply, fuses. Usually, I mean, like solid states. Usually, capacitors break and the power supply dies, but not a lot of other things fail on a solid state.
Okay.
Okay.
And let's see. Check on. That
Okay.
is it. So
Sweet.
we're gonna say thank you so much. Don't forget the code is RP Think Inc.
Which are on sale. They're in stock.
They're in stock right now. The second you can get these.
You can. They are purchasable.
You can get these.
And then you don't get the display, but we'll have the displays in the store.
Yeah. We tried to make it super easy. So if you see anything that says Think Inc., it means that it can like work with our displays.
Look, the pinout is even on the back.
The pinouts on the back.
How convenient.
Yeah. So that's our show. Special thanks to Jesse May behind the scenes and the Adafruit Slack doing stuff. Thanks everyone for keeping this going and coming up with cool projects and making this fun to do. That's important. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with electronics right now. We have so much stuff coming out.
I know.
We have so much stuff coming out. And what's cool is a lot of the stuff that we're working on is stuff that when someone gets it, they're going to be doing the fun, well, the other part of it, which is making cool projects with it, like the feather DVI thing. That's gonna
make cool art.
You're gonna be able to do cool, amazing art. We don't even know what people are gonna do with this yet. That's why some of these are so exciting. I remember when we did cricket with robotics, it was like people are gonna come up with amazing robotics projects we didn't even think of. And that's, I think, as a creator of things for people to make things, that's when I think it really hits the feels when you see someone do something that you didn't expect. So thank you everyone for doing that and also sharing it. So we'll see everybody on Show and Tell next week. We'll see everybody on Ask an Engineer next week. That is our show. This has been an Adafruit production. Here is your moment of Zener.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.